Hi guys, it's been a while since I've been back, and the reason being is probably wouldn't know this in Australia. It's winter, and we've just been hit with the biggest flu bug that we've ever had. Influenza A. My son caught it, and I caught it, and I've been knocked out of action for a little while. So it's maybe a bit ironic that I've come back today with the great new horror film It, and as usual we'll do the typical breakup, which is I'm just going to say whether you should go see it or not, which you probably know by now by just reading all the buzz and everything on the internet. Then I'm going to go through some of the themes and why it's good or bad, and then we'll go through some spoilers. So the quick rundown is this is a very solid to very good rendition of the book, famous book by Stephen King, written a long time ago. In fact, we'll talk about it a bit later. It's set in the 50s, and then there's a cycle to the 80s in the book, and in this film it's the 80s with a cycle which will then go to present day. So it's a big book, it's 1,100 pages, and they've had to do a few things to bring it down a little bit. But the number one thing is, yes, you should definitely go see it. I do think it's one of those films which can be a little bit scary for kids. I took my 12-year-old son, and it was definitely right on the borderline. He was a bit scared, but came out of it saying that he loved it. So just take that into account. Okay, I'm going to come back in a second, and then we're going to get really stuck into the themes of this new blockbuster. Okay, so let's discuss it. Now, Stephen King is famous for being one of the most prolific writers in the world and horror genius. And one of the things that is a constant theme through his books and then into his movies are the combination of small town, upper East Coast America, mainly in the state of Maine, in which children come of age and face their fears, and simultaneous supernatural horror generally. And it is almost like the textbook Stephen King. It's set in Derry, Maine, which is one of these fictional towns he has kind of invented, and he sets a lot of his novels there. He's got about 6 or 7, 8 stories. If you've ever seen the film Stand By Me, which has a lot of crossover with it, that is also set in Derry, but in a kind of non-supernatural kind of world, even though it's about a group of kids facing their fears. So let's start with, this has had a weird history. So it obviously was adapted in 1990, and the famous Tim Curry was Pennywise. And if you know anybody from that era, which was my era, they all loved the miniseries, and actually everyone thought that it was quite scary. If you've watched it recently, it's almost unwatchable. It is not scary. Bad acting across the board, and Tim Curry's about the only interesting thing about it. Then we go numerous years, and there's been a couple of times where they've tried to readapt it. And then if you're a big TV fan, Cary Fukunaga, who did True Detective season 1, which was absolutely brilliant, had a go at it. And he's actually a credited screenwriter on this new version. And he was attached to direct as well and fell out for numerous reasons. And then they brought in Andy Muschietti. Now, Andy Muschietti not that well-known guy. His best known film is Mama with Jessica Chastain. I haven't seen it. It's got a good rep as a horror film. So they've brought this guy in. The budget is $35 million. And as of today, it's grossed around $330 million worldwide. So this is an out of control hit. Now, let's look at the way Andy Muschietti has attacked it. The book is 1,100 pages, and basically it's the story of some kids who encounter a supernatural horror in the guise of Pennywise the Clown, and the horror reappears every 27 years. So that's just the basics. Everyone knows that. It's on the back of the book. So you could adapt this numerous ways, but what Muschietti decided to do was to just cut the story in half, pretty much. And he's just done the kid version, and he's taken it from the 50s and put it in the 80s. And the way that that gives him an opportunity to tell this story is, if you know a Stephen King novel, it's just full of great characters, and that's his, one of his hallmarks. And so the same with this, but you've got a lot of kids. You've got about 6 or 7 kids. You've got some bullies. You've got some adults. You've got Pennywise, and Derry the city is a character as well, because the town has all this history, and that forms part of the novel and part of the film as well. So he had to balance all that, and so by carving it and just concentrating it on the kids, he's able to get control of it. So he uses some interesting things. It's got a very muted palette, and if you've ever watched like home films from the 80s, they have a very weird color mixture, which is because they couldn't, it's not like nowadays where everything's digital and so crisp. Often the colors they could do some colors really well and some not so well. And so you'll often be watching a home movie and it'll be kind of really quite bland, and then there'll be like a big shock of red or green because it got color saturated. And Andy Muschietti's done that in this film as well, and it really works. So let's get to the main brilliance of this movie is that he tells the kid's story really well, and he's able to get fantastic performances. And I'll go through some of the kids later. I was torn between, do I name them all, because you could go look that up on IMDb. But he gets great performances. They're grounded. They actually act like kids. So even though they're in this world of incredible supernatural horror, they're still joking around, and they don't talk like 30-year-olds, and they're just really, really good. Plus, also, the town itself is very odd. So it looks like a town which could be inhabited. Everything looks like it's got history, but whenever you see the camera panning around, there are no adults ever walking around. There are adults in certain scenes. They're all slightly tainted. There's an odd creepiness. Some are outright malevolent, but even the adults who aren't doing anything wrong, there's something off. And that's one of the themes of the book, is that kids are terrified of that adult world. They don't understand it, they're not sure about it, and they're scared of it. Now, all the kids in this film are 12 years, 13 years old. They're right on the edge of puberty, and they know they're about to enter that world. And what they have observed is that the adults don't seem to understand what is happening. They're ignorant of everything. And the kids who are a little bit older than them are thrashing out with incredible violence. So 15-year-old, they're all like major bullies, and then you've got the 12-year-olds. So there's this real tension between everything. Then you throw into it Pennywise. So Bill Skarsgård is Pennywise. He's taken a bit of a slight different version of Pennywise. So you'll see different in the movie. He isn't always the same costume, and he changes it. And what I love about Bill Skarsgård is he sometimes changes the way Pennywise talks, and it's like Pennywise is learning how to speak English or to speak to this next generation of victims. And it's brilliantly done. It's instant icon. He is great. So the kids are great. Pennywise is great. The pacing of the film is actually not that fantastic. It's actually quite bloated, especially in the turning point of the second act as it leads into the third act. There's almost a replication of some of the drama in the second act, and especially trying to find out what is happening. And then the third act almost duplicates it again with a slight change. And to me, it's a very conventional horror film. So you kind of have to think, well, why is this so popular and why is it working? Part of the problem is it gets less scary as the film goes on. And that's because Muschietti uses a lot of jump scares, which are really effective in the first third and get less. The more you see Pennywise, the less scared you are of him. And they do overuse him by the end of the film. And I think it could have been brought back. Now, the reason why the film works is you want to love this film because the kid's so great and because it's so grounded, the world seems real. It was enough that I had not read the book. I want to read the book now, not because so much that I think, I'm going to be blown away by the story per se, but I love all the history of Derry and I want to know all about that. And I think that's where Muschietti has absolutely nailed it. He's created a film which everyone wants to enjoy, and therefore when they do, they come out of it very satisfied. So look, I want to say a few other things, so let's go to spoilers. Okay, so now let's discuss the ending. So there's not too much to discuss the ending in the sense that I'm going to spoil it for you. It's a horror film, and if there's kids up against a killer clown, generally the kids are going to win at some point. So the interesting thing about this film is, assuming you've seen it, if you're watching spoilers, is it ends saying this is chapter 1. So again, I was talking to you before about how Muschietti has basically carved the book up in two. So this is the first part, chapter 1 with the kids in the 80s, and chapter 2 will be these kids grown up in 27 years and they have made a vow to come back if the clown ever returns. And that's what they're going to do. So the interesting thing about that will be who will then play those kids. I think, there's some interesting ways they could go. And the second thing was the way that the film ended. To me, it looked like they had killed Pennywise, but I also think they'd also knocked the bully into the bottom of the well. And I think it was made clear that Pennywise needed one more victim before he'd hibernate for 27 years. I think he finds that bully, that's his last victim, because he tries to make a deal with the kids to have one more kid and to let the rest of them live. And then I think he goes into hibernation, comes back in 27 years. So there's not too much to say, like that I'm going to blow your minds with any other theories. I don't want to in a way because I'm like you guys. I'm really keen to see what they do. It'll take a couple of years to put together. And I think the big fun thing will be in the next couple of years, who's going to play all the roles. So the big one is, now I've got a list of all the people in it. So Beverly is the young girl, and who will play her in as a grown-up. So Jessica Chastain was in Muschietti's mama. So she's a redhead and looks a little bit like Beverly in the film. The other one would be maybe Amy Adams. And then the big, it's almost a joke, but it would be kind of fun, would be if Molly Ringwald, who actually even gets a call out in the film, came back as then the grown-up. I think the standout best thing I'd heard was Mike, the black character, the black kid in the film, for Jordan Peele, who made the best film I've seen this year, Get Out, great horror film, for him to come back as Mike. That would just blow me away. I think that would be fantastic. Obviously, Bill Skarsgård will come back as Pennywise. And the other thing that I really liked was there's one fat kid in it who's actually a really good actor. His name is Jeremy Ray Taylor, and he's a good actor. Really brought that role alive because often fat kids, the way they're played is he plays it just like a normal kid who's, likes his food a little bit. He's not really super bothered by it, and he's a normal kid. And I think really would be funny if Jerry O'Connell, who was the fat kid in Stand By Me, and who then grew up to be this gorgeous kind of guy and actor, if he then came back, I think that would be a great callback to Stand By Me. So I'm sure people have other ideas. I'd love to hear them. Put them in comments. Ring the bell so whenever I put one of these videos online, you'll know about it. Subscribe. I'm on Twitter under Eden at Eden Guru, and put your comments there. I love to have a debate about film, and I hope to get back into this and start putting up a lot more of these. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.